Well, guys, welcome back. We are now starting our journey on building Alley 2.0. I've been working on the rear end, getting the link set up with the shocks, getting the length for the rear that I want. So ideally, what we're doing is we've found the length we want with the rear link, okay? And then attaching our shocks to whatever position. Originally they're in this position, and then after that we are finding our position for the top depending on how we want it to squat. So as you can see here, we can have it and she will squat down like this, giving her maximum amount of compression. Holding the shock up here was just a bit too much. It was sitting on the frame, and then what was happening, the shock couldn't compress all the way before hitting the frame with the axle. So I dropped it down, and this will give it its maximum compression, but also will allow the shock to hang out more or flex more when she's driving. So we did have to do a bit of configuration with those links because they weren't exactly to length. As you can see, we have these were the original ones that were in there, and we've put in the Traxxas extended rod ends, and then we've changed out the balls that were in the original ones into the Traxxas ones. So it was a pretty easy setup. You can do this on pretty much most links that you get, and I mean you can buy these without the ball ends in them, which I would suggest, because the ones that do come in them are more for attaching like this, as opposed to fitting in your axle slots, or say in this type of slot. They'd be too wide. So your best bet is to get the rod ends without the ball ends and save yourself about $5, because you do pay extra for those ball ends. It's about $5. You get 8 of these plastic bits, and then you can adjust how long you want your link to be on either side. For me, I used on both ends to give it about an extra centimeter or 10 millimeters worth of length, and that seems to be okay. Now I might adjust that to be in the next hole up. But we'll see. It's a build in progress. We've just started, so we've got the rear axle in. I did get my drive shafts. These are TRX4 drive shafts. With these particular axles, the out drive for the shaft that comes out of the axle, I did have to grind down that out drive about 1 millimeter in order for the axles to fit on those. Just because they're TRX4 drive shafts, and I got those the TRX4 drive shafts from Jenny RC. I'd ordered from a TRX6 because I needed 3 drive shafts, and then from a TRX4. They're cheap, and they're pretty easy to get a hold of if they're in stock. But being Jenny RC sometimes has to wait until they sell near to most of all of what one model is, like parting it out before they will buy another one and get the parts off of that. You might be waiting a little while. They do have several different models of each truck, so make sure you check on each model of TRX4 before saying, oh, they don't have any, because they've got like 6 or 7 different models of TRX whatever they are. So keep that in mind when you're looking for TRX4 parts. You got to check each individual type, like Bronco, K10, TRX6, like the high trails, all those. You got to go through all those because you can use pretty much all those type of parts. So bear in mind, that's what you got to do. And then it takes roughly about 2 weeks to get to you, so it's not too bad in Canada. And yeah, so we've got most of the parts for Allie. We are still waiting on a forward-mounted transmission and T-case for her. But right now we're just mounting up the axles and the shocks, getting it into position. to find out what we need. I have a ton of links and rod ends here that I got to go through. But we did get the back put together, and I'll be back with more information when we get the front put together. So we're now going to put together our front shocks for Alley 2.0. If you don't have one of these tools, get one. They're relatively cheap. They're quite handy and useful. So you just put them around here. This keeps you from scratching up any of your bits. You can use another tool to pull out that rod end, but these aren't too bad to pull off because they're pretty well formed. So what we're doing is we're going to put this into a 3/4 squat, and the spring that's on there is actually going to go into the top, and we're going to take the spring that was in the top and we're going to put that on the bottom for these, and then we put the cartridge back on and then put the rod end back in. Now, I've had people say they don't like these shocks because they can't get the proper amount of compression on them when they put them back together. So I'm going to show you guys quickly how you can do that quite easily without having too much of a fuss. You're like, oh, I spent like 10 minutes trying to do it. Well, it's because you're not doing it correctly. So we've already got oil in there. Now, the other thing is people like air bubbles. Well, don't worry about that too much. It's not going to make a huge difference in these. You don't need to get all of the air bubbles out. You need to get most of them out. Because you're going to squeeze it out. All right. So we're going to slowly put this in, and you're going to get a mess. So that's why we got the paper towel here. Now these shocks do come with a wrench, which I will be using as soon as we get down. But you see, as I compress it, see the air bubbles are coming out. Now, when you're compressing it like this, what'll happen is you'll get hydro lock. It'll actually make it rise up a bit, and that's going to tell you whether or not you've got still too much oil in it as you close it. I might have poured a little bit too much out. All right. Oh, no. See, we got that little bit of oil coming out of there. So ideally, if you're getting hydro lock, what'll happen is you'll push down and it'll lock right here. So that's going to be like you've got too much oil in there. So what you would do is you would open it up just a little bit, tilt it on its side, run it a couple times up and down like this, and that'll get the that residual 1 mil or less. It's not very much in order to get that out. And then what'll happen is it'll come down to full compression after that. And you don't need to overly tighten these, because if you do, you'll break the seal. So right there, okay. We could probably go a little bit further down. So I'm going to open that up a little bit more. And we're going to work that on its side. See a little bit coming out. There. Perfect. That's how you do it. Not hard at all. Okay, so you're going to have to excuse the mess, as I'm a messy builder. It's what I do. It's how I build. So in order to get my length, Allie's running about a 318-ish wheelbase. So what we're going to do is we're going to put down a marker on how I want my wheelbase to be. So that'd be in and about that. If it's over or under a little bit, it's not a huge deal, right? So we can put that down just like that. That'll give us our basic idea of where we're at. And then I can go in and choose my links from there. So that's just our measurement to give us a proper idea. So just a little piece of chalk, pencil, or whatever you want down, and then find what you need. And then if you can go through your links, you can put your wheels down, and then you can measure between your skid plate and where your axles are to find what relative size you need within a couple of millimeters. So if that helps you, great. I'm going to continue to build, and I'll be right back. So I'm just finishing up the front links for the front end, and I am coming into two different ideas. This was giving me too much of a hang up, so I made a longer straight, and I put that in, and that's all fine and dandy. But then I thought, well, what if I turned it upside down, because my rear end is sitting higher, and I'll show you what I mean. So just like this, so that link follows in line kind of with the skid. So that's what I'm thinking. So I think I'm gonna try it that way with the tire on it. You can see, and there's not too much difference in the bend. With the bend, it's just to help it slide a little bit easier on the skid plate. But I think I'm going to try it like that. Might be more beneficial. This is the part of building vehicles, is you get to try little things like this. It's always fun. Fun, I say. All right, so that's pretty much a mock-up. Those aren't the wheels and tires I'm going to be using. But that's basically how she's going to be sitting. So you can see right there with the links what we're trying to accomplish there on the angles. Should do quite fine. But yeah, I think that it'll work out quite nicely. We just got to get the rest of the standoffs in from the mail whenever they arrive. So this is actually too big, but we're going to be changing that up with some carbon fiber ones, and we'll strengthen that up. And then I might either cut this or 3D print one. So it'll have to be cut right about there in order to fit the servo that will be in the rear end. But I think that's good for today. So I just want to wish everybody a happy Father's Day. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Careful, guys.